good evening, and welcome back to Celtic World Order podcast. As always, I'm Steve O'Matt, and as you can see, I am joined by two absolute belters of guests. Well, Paddy's not a guest, he's a resident, he's my right-hand man, he's my bearded brother, but down below is a familiar face, a man who is known for his sharp tongue and blunt honesty. I believe you were once called, was it a vomit of negativity?
A vomit of toxicity.
Oh, even better.
I was called.
Even
I'm going to get it on a t-shirt. I'm
love
definitely going to get that on a t-shirt.
Love it.
Yeah.
It is, of course, it's Giggsy Report, it's Kev Graham. You'll see him from Axom, and as I say, he's a man who's uncompromising in his viewpoints, particularly when it comes to tonight's hot subject, which is, of course, you see at the tagline, board of the board, the boys club needs disbanded, because last night, that lacklustre performance against Kairat Almaty ended up in a serenading of the board, and it wasn't positive. It was sack the board. That old chant made a back return. It came back with a vengeance, and the guys on the end of it, the combination of arrogance, but then it turned quickly to shell shock. And as we've been going around and seen social media, people are awash with theories. Is it the manager's fault? Is it the board's fault? So on and so forth. We're here to talk about the board. First and foremost, we're going to lay out what we know of them, what we know of the shareholding situation, and maybe, just maybe, try and work out, even though it's hard to do so, why Celtic are ran completely 100% like a corporation rather than a football club. So we will get right in about that. But before we do, the wee bit of housekeeping at the front end, we are only 9 people away from 2,000 subscribers on this channel. So if you are new to the channel, you haven't subscribed, what are you doing? It costs you nothing. It's absolutely free. Hit that subscribe button, give it a like. If you're liking it, share it, tell people, grow the community. You know the socials by now. You can get us elsewhere and do so. So guys, let's get down to business. But before we do, I just want to come to yourself, Kev, because me and Paddy came on this morning. We came with a calm head after last night's performance, and we tried to make sense of it. But yourself, what's your thoughts straight up on how it went last night?
I wish I would say it was surprising, but it wasn't really surprising. But we didn't do enough. Even with all the faults that we've got in the squad, our performance level should have been better for that 90 minutes. We should be taking a league to Kazakhstan next week. But then when you actually got to about 70 minutes and I'm sitting in the stadium and I'm going, I'll be quite happy to get across there with a clean sheet and take it again, because we weren't good last night. We weren't really, really good. I was always quite worried with folk actually talking about 3-4-0 victories, and I'm going, wait a minute, this mob have been through 3 playoff rounds. They've managed to get here. They didn't seem to lose many goals, even though they didn't score many goals. They're a well-organised outfit. And in the back of my mind, I was always worried, because of the deficiencies we've got in our first team and the squad, that we could struggle, especially if we didn't get the early goal. And that's what it turned out to be, to actually be like.
Yeah.
It wasn't funny. I started laughing when Alistair Johnson went down, and I didn't mean that in a bad way, because when he went down, then you see Tony Ralston warming up. I says to the guy I go to the football with, and the boy sits behind me, I went like that to him, I says, on 60 minutes, we're going to end up with Scales and Ralston as your 2 fullbacks.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And by this point, Yang's going to be on the park. And by this point, it's likely that Kenny and Yamada are going to be doing rock, paper, scissors in the dugout to see who's gone on, because there's nothing between any of them. And I went, you have to laugh that we've got ourselves to this point.
Aye.
And it's predictable that we got here. We saw it towards the tail end of last season when we saw the drop-off, especially with the big players. Then you haven't replaced Kyogo, Jota's got injured, Kuhn's chucked it, and you saw the holes in the squad at that point. The first team squad's a bit stale. I think there's some guys that need moved on there that have been on that mill far too long. I think Carter Vickers is one of them, even though he's still one of your best players. The whole place is just stale, and the team's stale. But we were still poor last night, even with all our deficiencies. We were still poor. It was just a poor performance, and we've got everything to do next week now. I still don't think we're out of it. truthfully. I still don't think we're out of it. But it would be so far easier if we had some things on the wings or like something up front. It would be far easier for us to do it. We're going there next week hoping, rather than going, we've got guys that can actually do this.
That's true. Yes,
but at least I've still got hope. I'll try and be a wee bit of positive there, eh?
Well, we've got to get some positivity in, because I don't think the next to follow is going to be too positive, mate.
Well, I think it's quite obvious where the problem lies. I think the manager's told you where the problem lies. And if you've been a Celtic fan that's been kicking about for the last 20 years, you'll know where the problem lies, because nothing's changed in that last 20 years. And I says that at the end of last season after the cup final. I'm going like that. We will do nothing in the transfer market until the last week of the window, till we see where we are. Yeah. And folks say, no, Kuhn's gone away early in the window, this and that. And I'm going, well, look, last season, we waited until Matt O'Reilly was sold before we actually spent. I says, in this season, we've actually got a qualifier to actually go. So we'll wait until the qualifier's done before they decide to do anything. And that's wrong. It is completely and utterly wrong with the money that we've got in the bank, with the transfer fees that we've already got in for Kuhn, Frimpong and Ben Doak this week as well. Eh? They've hung the manager out to dry. They have really hung the manager out to dry. And I don't think Brendan's absolutely blameless, but at this point, he's completely hung out to dry. Somebody says the other day there, it was like he's had one hand tied behind his back. And I'm like, he hasn't had one hand tied behind his back. He's been blindfolded, tied up, put in the back of a Ford Cortina, and he's getting chucked off John O'Groats. That's what they've done to him this summer. And they're chasing him at the door. And for all your faults you can see with Brendan Rodgers, are we going to get the same calibre of manager?
No.
Coming in next year. And that's a thing way.
That is the point, though. And Paddy spoke about this earlier on with myself. He says, when you look at the history of managers eventually coming to the end of their end of their tenure or otherwise, it usually results in the same way. You could insert this summer period into any other season, 10 years plus. Let's be honest, you could. It always comes down to the same thing, needing players, running a risk, right up to the last minute, wait and see, let's hope, let's get the money secured before we act, always against the backdrop of huge financial, money making, brilliant bank records, record turnover year upon year, so on and so forth. We never seem to learn. And the interesting thing is, we always look at what the managers say or what comes out in the press conferences. There was one that came out, and it was from August 2024 last year, and it was Brendan Rodgers saying about, we came into the end of this period. It's unforgivable that we find ourselves a week within the end of the transfer deadline and we are still in the same shape, that we're behind the curve. We shouldn't be operating like that. And he says, words to the effect of, hopefully we will come out of this, we will learn from it, and it's something that we will then move on from and will improve. Well, January came and went without any improvements, as you say, the loss of players there. And now we find ourselves in there. So there's something really, there's a dysfunction there. There's something broke behind the scenes, and we just need to sift through it. Now, the easiest one and the most obvious is, of course, it is the board, right? Let's not kid ourselves on. And just for the benefit of balance, we will caveat it and say that we are a very well-run club. From a business standpoint, you cannot deny that. The financials tell you that, the growth.
They do tell you that, Steve, but I've got a saying that we're good at football business, but bad at the business of football.
Yes, and that's
exactly
the
way I look at it.
That's exactly what I'm getting at, and that's hopefully what we're going to dig down and drill down and get to the end of. The reasons as to why that may well be. Is it just sheer greed? Probably. There's always corporate greed, but fundamentally that is the point. We are ran well as a business, but not as a football club, and they're two different things. So let's jump straight in. Get your opinions in as they come around. I'll try and get as many of them as I can. Let us know your thoughts on the board. We'll then revisit the game at the end, so on and so forth. So what I thought to do as a jumping off point is, we know that the board, and it's quite interesting, guys, because as a football club, probably Celtic fans know more about their board than any other club out there. There might be one or two, but Celtic know everything, and it's probably because of the poor track record that we've experienced with board members, and certainly a dynasty of previous, but we're very much living in a brand new dynasty. And there might be some people out there, the passive fans, maybe the happy clappers, whatever you want to call it, that just look at what Kev's saying there, Paddy. They'll look at the key stats, they'll look at the figures, they'll look at the numbers and say, well, it's no wrong, I don't know what you're moaning about. And then they bring in the 30 odd million pounds worth of signings, as we saw last season. But as we said, as we've covered before, it really is smoke and mirrors. It's always masked with something else. If you look at the track record of those transfer windows, we always put in more money to the bank than we do going out the other way, whether it's player trade and so on and so forth. And yes, that is part of player trade model, but it is not to say that that is the only way to do it. Sometimes you need to push the boat out, you need to move on and get it. So I thought we'd say, we look at the board in the first instance. Who are they? How long have they been there? And then we'll talk about it. So I had a wee bit of digging about. Some of the details can be quite difficult to get, but I want to read you something verbatim, straight off of the Celtic website, that tells you what the board do, apparently. So get your eyes around this. The board of directors has legal and financial responsibility for the affairs of the company. The board delegates day-to-day operational responsibility to the executive directors, the chief executive officer Michael Nicholson and the chief financial officer Christopher Mackay. The board as a whole monitors company performance against budgets in a rolling 5-year business plan, as well as making specific decisions on key areas of the company's business, risk management and setting future strategies. The board operates through an audit committee, a comprehensive set of internal financial controls, which are reported on regularly by the internal auditor and reviewed each year by the external auditors. There are some matters which the board can decide upon, including, for example, the appointment of directors and auditors, the payment of dividends, and the approval of budgets in the interim and annual results, decisions on significant contracts and expenditure above certain levels. That's interesting. Think about Dermot Desmond signing off over 3 million. Also require board approval. So there you go, Paddy. I mean, that just makes perfect sense to me. That just tells me that they're doing their job, isn't it? They've got their best interests at heart. And a couple of things I want to jump down on that there, Paddy. 5-year business plan, a rolling 5-year business plan, mate. Yeah. Have you heard what that is? Can you tell me what the 5-year business plan is?
I haven't got a clue, mate. Couldn't put a finger on it. The frustrating thing for me as part of that is always that thing there, like we said, the £3 million clause we're calling it. Dermot Desmond signing off on any player that is over 3 million. That frustrates the life out of me. As a football club going forward, we should be able to go out there and if our manager identifies somebody, whether his track record with players is good or isn't good, like you just need to look at Ida and Engels and you can kind of draw a line under some of them. Of course you could, but you've got to have faith in your manager. He's there for a reason. And Brendan Rodgers is a fantastic manager. And he shouldn't be coming out in interviews and saying, hopefully we'll get this one in. Hopefully we'll get that one in. Hopefully we'll do this business. And he kind of joked as well and said, well, we always get the business done. And remember that a few weeks back. And we're talking about this going forward. And yes, I keep saying we need to be proactive rather than reactive. And with a board that's doing things like this over and over and over and over again, you're not going to get that. You know what I mean? You're on mute, Steve.
Sorry, my apologies. Kev, what about yourself? A 5-year business plan, and they make financial decisions, they form future strategies, and of course the board have to be notified and sign off on certain expenditure. That's the only bit at the end that we have heard, at least through the grapevine, to be true.
Yes, we've heard it to be true. I didn't want to pour water and stuff like that, but I always have a look to see where that information's come from and who would benefit that information being out in the open. And for me, it's quite obvious that the folk who have leaked that information have got links to the old CEO, and it was well known that the old CEO would feed them information. So when that came out, I always have a look and go, right, where's the chain here? Who's trying to go, it's not my problem. It's not to do with me, it's other guys, eh? So I would caveat that with that sort of like defence. So we didn't really ken if that's true or no. But it does say on that website, budgets above expenditure above certain level, then the board can decide. So with that, we can probably go, well, it's on your own website, so there might be some truth in what the rumour is. Whether it's £3 million, whether it's £5 million, whether it's £8 million, we do not know. But it does say there the board has to get involved when there's certain expenditure involved. What 420 says was actually quite interesting, because it just means a 5-year rolling plan. It just means it starts again and it starts again and it starts again, right?
Yeah.
So that there's no going, and so I know for a fact that we only budget to get in the Champions League 2 years out of 5. I know that for a fact. I've been in a room when I've been told that with guys that are still involved in the football club. Okay. The only budget for 2 years out of 5 being in the Champions League. Now, for me, if you're running a business correctly and you've basically had for the last 15, 16 years shooting into the Champions League, well, you're not doing the best for the business if you're actually not making sure that you improve year on year to actually get that pot of money, to keep on improving year on year and year. But you're actually budgeting for failure. You're actually budgeting for absolute failure.
It's self-fulfilling prophecy. You remember Peter Wall's infamous interview or piece that was put out there, and he says about money in the bank and reserves and stuff, and it's for the eventuality for seasons, for example, that we don't make the Champions League. Yes, that rainy day money, you could call it that there. But again, we come back to the stark reality, which we showed before, Kev, which is this you're saying about when you've had shooting in. There's Celtic for 2017 onwards. Look at that barren spell. 18, 19, 20, 21. Qualifying round of 3, qualifying round of 2. And that is back down to not spending, not properly preparing, not putting things forward. Now, just before we deep dive into that, sorry, you're talking about losing and making money. See if you were a CEO of any other business, any other big company, right? And you're turning over 100, 150 million, 200 million, whatever it is, each other year. And you make decisions or sign off on decisions or have influence on major decisions, i.e. as a football club, signing players that will strengthen your cause and let you make more money by prizes and win and so on. See if 4 years on the bounce, your decisions, or at least part of your decisions, resulted in your business losing potential incomes of £40 million. You'd probably be at a job, but not at Celtic. Why is that?
For 20 years, we had the same CEO, and who micromanaged everything. He did micromanage everything, and anybody who has been involved with the club will tell you he micromanaged. The former CEO, Peter Wall, could tell you how many pies were sold in a certain kiosk in the North Stand. I've been there when he's actually said stuff like that, right? And I always thought, as a CEO of this football club, it's not your job to actually ken how many pies are being sold at a kiosk at one stand. It's not your job. You should have like more important things to actually go on about, to bother yourself about, So, and for what you've seen, for what I've seen, and this is just me, this is my opinion, since Peter has stepped back, since Peter Wall has stepped back, there's a vacuum there of, there's maybe guys there who are not qualified for the jobs that they're actually in because they were micromanaged that much that they didn't have to stand on their own 2 feet, and now they've been let go to walk. They're struggling. They could be struggling a little bit. There's also some... nothing's changed in that 20 years. Yeah. Peter Wall always left, and Michael Nicholson, who was a club lawyer, was promoted to club CEO. Now, I've met Michael plenty of times. He's a very, very nice lad. He is a Celtic fan. He is a right Celtic fan, and that's on. I didn't like when folk label at the board they're not Celtic fans. No, by the way, they are. I really do know that they are. But the way I looked at it, I says, if Michael Nicholson had went for a job with another football club as a CEO, would they have gave him that job with his CV? Probably not.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing.
So probably no. He's a very, very decent lawyer, and that was proven over the years. But he's also learned under Peter Wall of the way the club does business, and there's a staleness there in the background of the way that we make decisions. Things have moved on. Things have completely moved on from 20 years ago. We still can't be doing business that way. I didn't mind the board setting a budget and giving it to football guys and going, there's your budget there. If you're going to go £2 above that budget, you've got to come back to us. But we're not interested until you're ready to go above that budget to have that conversation. And there is a bit too much interference there. I mean, how does a financial guy know that winger's not worth £5 million? Maybe it will get proved that he wasn't worth £5 million because 50% of signings do actually fail. But it's the constant culture of having to win the deal, which holds us up. Having to get the best deal possible, being absolutely awkward to deal with. And I've heard that from agents, that they hate dealing with Celtic because we're that awkward. And you hear it with the young lads, that have actually left. Like Daniel Cummins was one of them. Celtic never spoke to him for 6 months to get a new contract and stuff. And there's more and more a case coming up, and you get outside guys going, Celtic are an absolute nightmare to deal with. And that's wrong. And that's something that needs to change.
We've seen this, Paddy, and it comes back to even the likes of the Jacob Braham thing. Again, Anthony Joseph, just on a side note, speaks about how that's back on and ramped up, and Celtic are putting in all their efforts. After the event, after last night's result, after the struggles that we faced. So the big question there, Paddy, is there a disconnect between our board and the football and business is done? Some audio problems. Are you there, Kev?
I'm back. I think I disappeared for a wee while
there was
there.
a massive failure there for some reason. I don't really know what's happened. It appears that Paddy's gone there, but Paddy's back. So apologies to everybody if it's happened. It's clear as to what exactly happened there. It went all a bit funny. It all buffered, and then everybody just back. So
Still buffering, Steve.
To be,
by
I think you need to go down and put a pound in the meter, Steve.
get the dial up on.
Aye, what was it he was asking me? Can you mind? What was that? It kind of went all...
He started asking you a question, then it disappeared. So
yeah,
I didn't actually pick up what he was actually saying.
Yeah.
What would you think of a 5-year plan that budgets for 2 years only been in the Champions League for like?
I think as a team in Scotland that wins the league as much as we do, we should be trying to push for the big table every single year. 100%. Like if you win that league and you know you've got a chance of getting into the Champions League, then you've got to push for it. Whether it's a rolling year contract then, where you say, right, if we win the league this year, then we're going to push for the Champions League. And we're not talking like, we know what we've got in the bank. They've been blatantly honest about that. But we want investment. We're not saying go out there and invest 70 million. We know that's not going to happen. But it's the money that we've brought in with player sales. We're going into a Champions League qualifier against a team for Kazakhstan that we were expected to beat because they had a lower coefficient than St Mirren, St Johnstone and other teams like that. So going into it, I would have expected a bit of investment. You look at the players we've lost. Nicholas Kuhn, he's not been replaced. Benji Nygren was kind of brought in as a replacement for him, but he's not a direct replacement. Even Engels wasn't a direct replacement for Matt O'Reilly. We've not really replaced these players with a like for like. Kyogo, we didn't bring in another striker. We brought in Jota, who was another winger. Now Jota's out, so we've not even got another winger there to cover. God forbid something happens to Kieran Tierney or Daizen Maeda. If anything happens there, then we're right up shit creek. Do you know what I mean?
I think we've had the qualifier, right? So we've had the qualifier. Even if with the qualifier, we should not be going into the first game of the season with everything that you've just listed there as James Forrest as the best winger at the club, the best fit winger at the club. That should not absolutely happen. And that is no offence to James Forrest for that. We should not be going into the first game of the season against St Mirren with James Forrest the best winger at the club. And when you've got to remember during the summer, for what we've kind of been told as well, that Yang's agent was touting him all in championship clubs because they'd been told that he can go and find a new club. So this one is really, really weird because we got the money in early. And we all know, for me, we all know that we're not going to spend any more than the 20-odd million pound that we've brought in for the transfer fees.
Yeah.
That's already sitting there.
It's sitting there now. We get the 40 million for the Champions League. And then they'll release that 20. But
then that's not the way it should work.
I know.
That's not the way it should work because you look at your net spend over the last 10, 12 years, I think it's less than £5 million. I think we've actually made £5 million profit. And that's fine. That's brilliant. But you've got to invest at the right time. And that's something that we've never got the knack of. That is something that we've never got the knack of. And for me, that points to the way that we do business. And it points to the fact that the guys in there need somebody else to come in and have a look at this and go, I mean, Gordon Stratton came in and done a review. Have we ever actually heard whatever happened in that review?
There's no transparency. There's no transparency whatsoever with the board or anything else that goes on at Celtic. I mean, we talk about John Paul Traynor, and listen, God love the guy. It's one man doing a job that 20 people could do. And I feel like there's a lot of people obviously giving him stick. Oh, you should be coming out. You should be telling us what's going on there and what's happening and blah, blah. You're the fan liaison. You've got to do this. But this is one guy trying to do that job. And you don't get the board coming out and doing interviews and things like that. You look at the boy for Hearts, the new owner of Hearts. He's been out there doing interviews. This is our plan for going forward. This is what's going to happen. This is what I'm going to invest. Blah, 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 blah. The guy might be a melt, but he's honest about what he's doing. He's come out there and he stood in front of his fan base and went, listen, guys, this is my plan going forward. So if the Celtic board done that, you just see Michael Nicholson or Peter Lawwell sitting there and saying, right, guys, this is what's happening here. This is what we're going to do going forward. This is how much money we're going to invest. We spoke about it again, proactive rather than reactive. That's exactly what you've got to do. You know you're going to lose Nicholas Kuhn. Replace him straight away. And don't be going to a club and saying, "Oh, we value that player at $1.5 million. I know you want 5 million for him, but there's $1.5 million." And it's getting laughed at. Was it the chairman of Go Ahead Eagles put out his statement there on X saying that Celtic should be more like the rivals across the city. They should just come in and do business the right way, and then kind of joked about it, going, "Ha ha 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 ha." That's not what you want to see. Do you know what I mean?
Hopefully, Steve. Oh, he's moved.
He's back. He's moved seats.
I apologise completely to every single person watching and you guys. And thank you, though. I see that you're keeping it up. Yes, unfortunately, my wee back office, it would appear that it is just an absolute dead spot. So I've had to come back downstairs to the living room and wire myself directly into the computer.
Tidy. I heard you always like to get wired into things anyway.
That's it. But we can get back to business. So you guys have been doing well. Keep me abreast. Where are we at?
I was just trying to figure out, obviously, what the question was you were asking before you started giving it the robot dance or whatever it was you were trying to do. We just kind of spoke about the board and obviously kind of where it's at. Speaking about getting some transparency, and obviously John Paul Taylor feeling quite sorry for him doing the job that 30 people should be doing. Yes. I just feel like it's a tough situation, and I mentioned the Hearts owner coming out in front of the fans and saying, like, this is my plan, this is what we're doing.
The transparency is huge.
Do you know what I mean? Brilliant. That's what you want to see.
It needs to be. So, as we say, if we don't mind, what I'll do is I'll jump back into as to where we were going to be. So that would be the segue about the board and who are they and who are these faceless entities. So there's obviously a wee graphic, something there. I'm sure most Celtic fans know there, but in case they don't, there we go. Let's start at the top. It's obviously Michael Nicholson, the CEO. He's been at club 2013. He's been in current role since December as the CEO. As Kev did say, though, he has been at the club since 2013. And during that point, he was basically the company secretary. Yeah. He was then called in 2019 the director of legal and football affairs, whatever that means. And of course, he went on to be just the lawyer, a very good lawyer and all that. But essentially, that is his background. Setting down from it, Chris Mackay, the chief finance officer again at the club, 2016, and in his current role since December 2021. He joined 9 years ago. And what's his experience? What does he bring to the party? 15 years as a financial advisor to large corporate companies. And then, of course, we get everybody's favourite, the non-execs. Peter Law. Remember, we used to call him the non-executive chairman? Well, they've just removed that non-executive part from his name, it seems, and now he's just the old chairman. You need no introduction to the man. He's been there since 2003. Take that in. Wow. Before his slight departure. Don Mackay comes in. We'll go on to Don Mackay, then moves on. Of course, Dermot Desmond, the money man, the monopoly man. He has a monopoly on Celtic, and he's been there since May 1995 when he first got himself involved with his shares and his input, which have more than paid its way by now, I would say. Right. And of course, some of the other less sort of at the front, lesser mentioned, Tom Allison on the board since 2001. He has a shareholder as well, about 3.5% stake there, and he was appointed in 2001. Ages. And he is described by many as being the eyes and ears, the man in the boardroom on the ground. He's Dermot Desmond. He's Dermot Desmond's man. He's pseudo Desmond. He is him when he can't be there. And then, of course, exactly. Yes, the man that keeps eyes and tabs on everybody. Brian Wilson, independent. Well, what is independent? Well, these are the people that are supposed to hold the board to account, that are supposed to ask the hard questions and make sure that the business has been running well and transparency. Sharon Brown, there since 2016, again, clocking up in 9 years, and she's apparently an expert in finance and governance, and she takes to do with the audits, apparently. I use the word apparently a lot here. And of course, finally, Brian Rose, 2023. Now, this one's an interesting one because apparently he comes hot off the sort of press from down south of Apple services in London, and he's been brought in with 20 years plus of experience in entertainment and music industry and content creation industry and so on and so forth, working alongside large music companies and film companies. And he's here to revolutionise and develop Celtic's digital footprint and make us better in all those different facets of that.
We're going to be like This Is Wrexham, or we're going to be getting a Netflix series made about us. Is that what's happening here? I think that's the least of our problems, just having somebody like him in the door trying to do something like that. Let's just do what we do in the pitch and start getting the manager some money.
Yes.
Hence how you're now getting 5 emails for Celtic a day trying to punt your merchandise. That's your digital footprint, aye.
Well, see, when you look at that, guys, why did I bring that up? Because we spoke about staleness.
Yeah.
Look at the average tenure of those people on that board. It's quite sickening. You know, look, 1995 takes care of itself. That's a major investment situation.
Yes.
But when you think of Dermot Desmond, aside to him, Pedro, 2003, you look at even Michael Nicholson, 2013, so on and so forth. There is a vast amount of years, in some cases well over 20 years, into the 30. Now, most companies, most boardrooms, most sort of corporations, there's a tenure on it. It's about freshening it up. It's about evolving it. Now, yourself, Paddy, I don't know if you're aware of any business like that, but aside from a family-run business where it would be family members and potentially things like that, that seems like a bit of a strange one, does it not? That people would be able to be in a job, a well-paying job, for quite as long as that without any change or threat to their position.
Yeah, I mean, I work in the oil industry, as most people that watch the show know. I'm working alongside companies, massive companies, do you know what I mean? Really well renowned, and their CEOs kind of change out every 3-4 years. You would say they kind of change that out. Some of them change the name for tax purposes, but we'll avoid that. You look at it, the board isn't always as long-standing as what ours is, Steve. We're always sitting there and you see, this one's changing out and that one's changing out. We sometimes get visits for them out in the platforms and stuff, and you've got to kind of rein it in a little bit, going, right, this is the new CEO coming out, or right, what one's this? I was just getting to know the last one, and it's a bit here and there. Do you know what I mean? And I think it needs to be questioned. People that are in jobs like that, it seems to me a bit like jobs for the boys in there, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, you know, Kev, you hit it in the head, and I said at the top of the show before the technical difficulties, we're living in a new dynasty. We obviously look at the Kellys and likes, and that was a inbuilt, holding on for dear life, family type situation where they just didn't want to relinquish power. We then get in the winds of change of someone like Fergus Mac, and he came in and he directly gave us his business plan from the off, didn't he? He told us what he was going to do and when he was going to ride off into sunset, and he set us up and gave us the foundations for something good. Now, it would be remiss to not turn around and say that guys like, you know, Peter Wall, over the years in the initial stage coming in, remember that guy with all the dark hair, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed and all that, came in as a real fan. I'm sure he still, if it is, of course, a fan. You stick around so long where you kind of maybe lose that sight and you essentially become your role. You become embodied with your role. You become the businessman, and you live along and stay around long enough to become the enemy, as we're seeing here. But there's a distinct lack of freshness, and I throw the same thing to you there that I did to Paddy. It's highly peculiar that people have that length of tenure, is it not?
It's very highly peculiar that length of tenure. What really struck me there, and it's probably not something that I've looked at for ages, like that list there, eh? Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that they're good at ticking the boxes for the corporate governance. I'm sure they're great at. Every one of them's got a business head. Every one of them.
All of the backgrounds are business when you look at it. All very business
corporate, eh? And that's why their finances are in such a good place, because you've got guys who and women there who know how to watch the pennies. As Dermot Desmond says in an interview for was it the Celtic Opus? When that came out, he says the way I do business is if we get £20 in, we spend 19, and everybody's happy. That's the way that he does business. So everybody that's there has will tick every corporate governance box nicely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
None of them there should be anywhere near trying to complete football deals. None of them there should be there going, by the way, we want you to scout this type of player, and he must be under 22, and he can't have tattoos, he can't have an Instagram account, he can't do this, he can't do that. They should not be getting involved in any of that whatsoever. There needs to be a buffer between the football department and them. There needs to be a sporting director in there now, because it's went on too long, them thinking their way is right. The world has moved on. The world has completely moved on.
When you think about that makes sense, and that's something that we've been shouting out for, a modernisation, the way that we think. Director of football or a sporting director, someone who's solely there for the business aspect, the sporting side of the business, right? Now that comes in then to, I just want to use as a wee segue, there's no one there. Yes, there will be fans, and I don't doubt that. You can question that they act and say, are they really fans? Of course, we'll always do that. But as you're saying, you know that. And again, from the times that I have heard of people who have had any interactions or knowledge of any of these people, they will say the exact same. They are bona fide Celtic fans. But as I say, it's once you step into that world, it becomes different to split the two. And no doubt they think that they are completely doing what's right from the business standpoint and forgetting about the football. We should have someone at least, I would say, on the board who's either a fan voice, which we'll go on to at some stage. That would be ideal. But there should be someone there from, I think, at least a sporting background, a sporting background. And perhaps that was, I just want to throw in there, is Don Mackay. Now, we all remember, Kev says, CEO current is a guy that was a lawyer, right? And absolutely no credentials at CEO level. Nothing. No operating, no background, no track record. But he was the best man for the job. He was just happened to be at Celtic Park. You know, it's funny, so many jobs happen that way, guys. That he was the best man for the job. What exactly was, if any, the interview process for that? Or was it just a case of, like if you wanted to go and get the gearbox in your car changed out, you wouldn't go on to trust a trader and get a landscape gardener to do it, would you? You just wouldn't. So why do we get a lawyer to run as a chief executive officer of a massive football club, a massive company with huge turnovers? It's all right. I don't have the experience. That's fine. Listen, Peter's but he'll keep you on the job. He'll give you some pointers there. But I want to look at Don Mackay just on that, because he was that guy. I think he ticks that box. Don Mackay, Scottish Rugby, Director of Communications. He then moved up. He was the CEO between 2015 to 2021 before he came to us. Proven track record, the forward-thinking guy in his 40s, an up-and-comer, if you want to call it that. Believe he was a Celtic fan, apparently, according to him. I don't know how much truth on it, but take it at face value. And then he comes in and he does an amazing thing. He opens up dialogue with the fans. Do you remember that, guys?
Yeah.
And he said, this will be the cornerstone of my regime. Communication and sitting down and inviting the fans in. We then go on something of a small spending spree, and we buy guys who, let's be honest, were pretty damn good. And then a couple months down the line, he's out the door and he's gone. And there's a non-disclosure order, I believe, and he can't speak about it. Now, there's this theory that some people want to throw out when he comes up, that Don Mackay was a plant, that Don Mackay was a lackey, a patsy, a fall guy. I'm sorry, excuse my French, plug your fucking brain in. See if you believe that. You are tinfoil hat stuff. Let's get this straight. You go to Scottish Rugby and you get a guy who's making a fortune and he's well established and highly thought of and he's a go-getter. And you say, here's what's going to happen. We're going to get you in. We're going to do all this new shiny stuff. You're going to buy players. You're going to make it look like we're moving forward. You're going to talk about progression. But here's the kicker, right? We're then going to sack you, make you sign something you can't talk about it, but we'll pay you handsomely. Come on. Am I meant to believe that? garbage. Reputational damage to someone like him would be massive. It would be huge. It just doesn't happen. It's bollocks. What happened was, in my opinion, Don Mackay comes in and does what a CEO does of a sporting organisation. He wants improvement. He wants audits. He wants to review. He looks at these guys. You've been here 20 years. You've been here 10 years, 15 years, 9 years. What's your job? What's your track record? He looks at it and says, we might need to review that. But the one thing in common with all these people on this board is they're all like that. They're part of the furniture. They've all got irons in the fire, and they're the ones to lose. And I believe it would have been mutiny. This guy's he's thinking about getting us reviewed and out of here. Is that right? Watch this and turn around. Before you know it, Don Mackay's out the door. And see if he was that bad and he was that much a failure, why does he go on to be the chairman for the head of European club rugby and then gets headhunted and now finds himself as the CEO of the Scottish Events Campus? Tell me. Yeah. Make sense of it, please.
So you appoint somebody that's got a CV to be a CEO of a sporting company, a sporting brand, and he comes in and goes, all right then, right, so the first thing we want today is we want to improve communication with the fans. Brilliant. The communication for his 3 weeks he was in the door was brilliant. The best communication we've had in the last 5 years.
Yep.
He then goes to the manager, which is probably something that he wasn't really involved in with Scottish rugby, having to go and sign players. He's probably sitting there going like that, why do I need to go and sign players? There surely should be somebody else that's qualified to do this job to actually do it. So Postecoglou tells him, I want this guy. I've got a favoured agent. This favoured agent's recommended him. It'll be quite easy to deal with. So Mackay goes and gives them what they basically want because he's got no expertise in doing football deals, right? Yep. If you want to believe the rumours, that was the reason he got terminadoed, was because of the low sell-on fees for Juranovic and I think it was Giacomakis, who didn't last too long at the club and were sold at the first opportunity to maximise their value. So he goes in there and he goes, I want to do things this way, gets a tap on the shoulder. We didn't do stuff like that round about here, but we'll give you a nice wee payoff and didn't say anything else about it.
Yeah, but, sorry, it's interesting. San Fran says, no, he signed something wrongly. Well, yeah, okay. Bad wordage there, but it's essentially the same thing. He's willingly signed something, but it's a gentleman's agreement of we won't ruffle some feathers if you don't ruffle no feathers. That's what you do, and you take it. But it comes back to what we're saying. You're totally right there, Kev. Sorry for jumping in. He found himself with all the credentials of the CEO, the communication, and the principles of it. What he needed was a bit of guidance from a footballing side of things. I think that's fair to say.
Even bringing in somebody like Stratton, who they know, but Stratton has if they're not going to bring in some hot shot for Bruges, I look at Bruges and I look at what they're doing and go like that. They see the Champions League as a European league. They sell guys for 33 million, 20 million and that, but they're bringing replacements between £6 and £10 million.
Yeah,
and I'm going, that's the way we should be doing it. We should no longer be short them in the Slovakian second division for a right back.
No,
we should be looking at the higher up levels, right? And that's all we're asking for. We're not asking for. We didn't want to go out there and sign Yamal or anybody like that. We just want to actually keep on progressing as a football club. And if they didn't trust somebody like that to come in and go, by the way, we need to rip this up and start again, then you bring in somebody like Stratton as a sporting director who knows how to deal with football clubs. He was a sporting director at Dundee, I think. Yep. He could still well be, as far as I'm aware.
I think he's still there, aye.
But
is there a fear though?
I think there is.
Is there a fear though to have someone of a sporting ilk who's solely focused on the pros and the cons of making a squad better and knows about values and knows about, what you need at a football club? Is there a fear of creating this position? Is it, and I know it's been cynical, for the financial ramifications of what that causes, potentially setting up a new department and having a guy in charge and then maybe these guys under him?
I'm going to jump in here, Paddy. Sorry.
On you go.
It's not financial. These guys are rich guys. It's not financial. It's ego.
Mm-hmm.
It's that they want to be sitting there with that grey suit on and the Celtic tie. And it's no financial, it's just pure, he could come in and get rid of me at any point.
Yeah.
Why does Brian Wilson want to be a non-executive director for 20 years?
Exactly.
Why do you want to do that? I don't think it's financial. I do think there's a bit of an ego there that somebody goes, I like this. This is a great wee shift that I've got here. Eh? It's like a bowling club committee. You kill your miners' welfare committees and all of that. You didn't leave a miners' welfare committee till you get carried out in a box. And this is what this kind of thing is runway as well. I don't think it's financial whatsoever.
Well, see, in terms of that, one thing I want to just quickly investigate, and this is important when we say this, we need to split the two. We spoke about the board, we spoke about the people on the board, we spoke about the tenures, we spoke about why it needs to be changed, it's old, it's crusty, it's this and that. But another side of that is shareholdings. Now, does shareholdings point to why our club and our board run things the way that they do? Yeah. Now, again, this changes. It's quite hard to pin down these exact figures. So you'll see when I bring this up that some of these are approximate. And there's one at the bottom that I put a wee asterisk next to that. If anybody does have the information, because with all the digging of the day, I couldn't find it. Shareholdings. So according to Celtic, from Line Nominees Limited down to Tom Allison, that's who they list on their website. Okay. They then go on to say that the rest are out there in the ether, and there's roughly X amount, 1,000 independent other people that own shares, right? So let's just run through them. Line Nominees Limited, approximately 34.62%. Now, that is Dermot Desmond. That's a vehicle for him to do his investment, but that is Dermot Desmond. The second one, which is interesting, Bank of New York Nominees Limited, where it says 17.71% according to the Celtic website. Now, who are they and what are they? Well, they're apparently part of Bank of New York Mellon Group. And essentially what they are is an asset management group, a faceless investor entity group, where it could be Paddy, it could be Kev, it could be me, X other people, who they take care of a set group of people's investment in Celtic Football Club. So in short, they are there to drive asset growth, make money. End of story. Nothing more, nothing less. There to make money. This is an interesting thing. We talk about guys on the board and ideas and tapping in. Chris Traynor, approximately 11%. Who is he? Chris Traynor, well, I'll tell you. He was a Forest Media that he recently sold the business for 32 million. See, when you see all those big moving billboards, the big animated ones, look at the wee square under it. It'll say Forest Media Group under it. That was him. Also part of Forest Hotels, who, by the way, he was one of the key responsible guys for making the Radisson Red the first new build Radisson property in Europe with a 30 mil investment in it. He's described as an advertising guru, but is not on the board. Now, that could be for various reasons. He might not want to be on the board. He may be a board member elsewhere, so on and so forth, but he has not got it. But when you think about what I've just told you there, a marketing guru, Forest Media Group, the hotels, what's happened with Radisson Red, see all that stuff with that hotel and all that kind of stuff? Well, wouldn't you think about tapping into somebody like that's expertise, where Forest Hotels basically went, we will build it, you will brand it, you will take over it, that's the deal, make it happen. That sounds like something you might want to look at. Then, of course, there is James McKean, another 6.23%, Scottish clothing tycoon, Woolen Mill, Kiltane brand. He's described as retail and clothing and brand management expert. Again, he's not on the board. That could be totally through choice for other interests, but worth noting his specialisms and expertise. Then there's Tom Allison, big Dermot Desmond's pal, with a 3.54% stake and slice in it. His background's marine and shipbuilding stuff. It's not really relevant. He's just a pal. He's just there in the face. The one that I want, if anybody knows, throw this at me. There's a lot of the things that I was looking at. The last one, Lindsell Train Limited, where mixed reports are saying an 18.6%. Now, I've written, is that current or is that previous? Because I simply do not know. It is not listed on Celtic's website, and mixed sources will say that they are someone. Have they been bought out? Is this now what this Bank of New York nominees is? Has that been broke down? If other people buy it? I don't know. But the key point here is when you look at that details, essentially, there's a big slice of corporate there that are just there solely to make money, Paddy. Could that be the answer as to why we don't act more like a football club and act more like a business? In other words, if it's not broke, don't fix it. They'll look at what we can do doing the bare minimum with our, like clockwork turnover, merchandise, sponsors, money for Europe, so on and so forth. And they're content, they're happy, they're getting steady growth in that every time. Yeah. Is that perhaps the answer to why we act the way that we do?
When you sent this through to me, Steve, when I had a wee look at it, and you're looking at the New York holdings thing, and it's basically, like you say, just a financial ombudsman, basically, for people to invest in and grow their money and likewise. So I had a look at other kind of big teams. Obviously, your Man United, your Liverpools, your Barcelonas, your Munichs, all of these kind of teams, and there's a lot of these high investment kind of companies in with every team. So you can't say that that's part of the problem at Celtic. Yes, you want to keep the shareholders happy, and the CEO will be doing that, but it's the same way every other club, and they're not acting the way we do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So going with that, obviously you're talking about marketing gurus and this boy with the hotel and thing. Obviously, with all the planning permission, we were going to build this big, massive hotel just next to where the school was. Mm-hmm. There's a part of that school that is a listed building, but we did get the planning permission to go ahead with it. And that was then a line drawn under it. Nothing else was ever said. Like you say, Steve, can we not be going to these guys and saying, listen, with your expertise, you're a massive shareholder at this club, could you help us out? Could you give us some advice? Can you help us do this? Surely you would do that to push and to bring these guys on board. A jobs for the boys thing, which is what it seems to be in the boardroom anyway. The other ones as well, the marketing side of it and the billboards and things like that. Again, that's businesses that you've got to be tapping into. I don't know why these guys don't have any say on the board. Like you said, it might be they don't want to be part of it. Maybe they're not invited. Maybe it's a Dermot Desmond gets to agree.
It doesn't necessarily need to be them. It could be someone representing their interests on the board. Aye. And Kev, with yourself, and you're obviously quite well versed in that. The reason I brought this up was just to try and get a steer to say, why is it that we deal that way? Now, people are saying, and I am stating the obvious, any investor want to make money, but this just seems that it is solely for cold hard earnings and nothing else. What I mean is we are risk averse within reason. We're risky in terms of our approach, i.e. what we've done with the Champions League, not spending and waiting until we get it. This board are not shy of risk, the wrong type of risk, but they are cash spending averse. They are risk averse to that principle at the front end. Do you think because of the amount of people that are solely just there wanting to build up the stockpile in their interest, i.e. the 17% that's for private investors, faceless investors that are there for that and nothing more, they don't care how they get their wedge just as long as it comes. Are our board looking at solely for a corporate standpoint where they're saying, we don't want to risk spending that 40, 50 million, whatever it may well be, because if we don't do that, we get a loss. That means their dividends for that period go down. They'll be unhappy. In short, keeping investors happy at whatever cost.
I don't know if it's like obviously the New York one's a hedge fund, the same as London was a hedge fund, and they probably have got some link to Dermot Desmond at some way. I was going through my mind there, and I think New York did buy out the London one. And
that's what I was thinking. That's because it was,
and I do think that a lot of people thought that was a big American interest coming into Celtic when that changed over, and it didn't actually happen. I reckon the risk averse actually going bust, and I reckon the risk averse I reckon they've still got a wee bit of PTSD for the Daiwa years when the top tier was shut, and then when we went into the Europa League, getting battered off Croatia Zagreb and the Red Bull Salzburg, and that there was 28,000 there, right? Mm-hmm. And they really fear that we could end up back there. But if they had expertise in football, right? And all they were doing was saying, look, if we bring in 20 million, right, if we bring in 20 million transfers, you get to spend 19 of that, right? Then handing it over to experts in football business, they would still be nowhere near going bust. Yeah. They would still be, and they would still have all this risk aversion because these guys will be working within a budget. But the guys working with the budget would know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. I don't think they don't want Celtic to spend the money. I just think they're incapable of actually doing it, and that's because there's a lack of knowledge on the football side, and they've got away with it plenty of times. And they'll point to the fact is, oh, we got a Matt O'Reilly. Well, sorry, Matt O'Reilly was offered to you because he was on the same agency as Ange Postecoglou. He's never scouted him. He was actually presented to you, and you went, "Oh, we'll take a punt on him because he's $1.5 million." So
is that not the same as what supposedly happened with Lagerbielke, where it was, by the way, see if you like Starfelt, you're going to love this guy. I represent.
That was the rumour as well. So they've got lucky, and they have got a series of. It was well known when Law was in charge, there was certain favoured agents that we would get players for all the time that we would use. And we can do things better. The guys on the huddle breakdown have went through about our player trading model. It's not as good as your Club Bruges. It's not as good as the folk that we compete with every year to get into the Champions League. Our player trading model's not as good. We can still be risk averse, but give the money to guys that know football. Just stop. This is what you've actually proved tonight, Steve-O, and it's been absolutely brilliant what you've actually done. It's proved to me that we've got the right guys in those positions to make sure the club doesn't actually go bust.
Yeah.
But you've also proved so far well that these boys should be nowhere near making any football decisions.
Yep. And that's the thing. We do really need to modernise, and we look at we've got Tisdale and we've got pathways and all this kind of stuff. It's just blowing smoke up people's backsides. It's just putting out there playing a game.
I'll go this to you, Paddy and Steve-O. What do you think a pathway manager does?
Well,
nothing.
You would assume a pathways manager would be involved in the basis overseen of from boys level right up to, within what we used to call the unders, ready to go, and then the reserve side. So there's a gradual stepway that you can see a smooth transition. This is with the plan for each player. It's ironed out. It's a very direct, linear route. It would be customised to each player, and then it would oversee what's best for development. Is that loans here? Is that there? Blah, 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 and so on and so forth. And maybe even identifying youth opportunities. But that's just me saying that because I've never been told is the truth. And I also believe that Mr. Tisdale done a wee closed shop to fans forum that told us, again, with their own 5-year plan, told us this is how we're doing business, this is what we'll do. And it never got published. Wouldn't it be nice to have that wrapped up and presented in a wee video that you could go and watch on YouTube and feel part of it and gain some understanding? Because no matter what we've spoke about so far tonight, guys, the underlying point is communication is non-existent. We don't know the 5-year plan. We don't know the budget. If you believe what the managers told them, if you get in the Champions League or Europa League, does it affect your budget? Does he even know what his budget actually is? Because if that isn't the case, that's phenomenally, incredibly, ridiculously wild. It is bananas if that's the case. So if you can't get the basic communication for your manager, who essentially is the football department, unfortunately for him, trying to do everything, and them up there, how are we, the wee people out here, meant to know what the Tisdale does, what the Pathways manager does, what anybody at that club does.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, they're coming in, but you look at guys like Cummings as well. You spoke about him earlier on. Losing him for 350 grand is ridiculous. You just need to look at the amount of goals that young lad scored the season before he left. We spoke to Rudy Vata about Rocco and the way Rocco was treated all the way through. And it's ridiculous. It's horrifying to hear that as a club, we're not pushing the youth system to progress into our squad the way that we should be, the way that other teams are. You just need to look at our squad. We're nowhere near the way we were 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And we're bringing in all these guys, ex-players, and giving them jobs, saying that, all right, this is your new job. You're now the manager of the youth system, and you're the progression manager, and you're doing this. It's jobs for the boys, but they're not doing much.
Do you, Kev, you asked the question, do you know the answer? Just out of curiosity.
A pathway manager is there to make sure that every player that comes through your academy makes you money.
Is that
it? And I would probably, there's a question then. Paddy used the term jobs for the boys. Now in our dressing room, there's a big light up green sign that says world class basics, and it appears that we just can't get the basics down. There is jobs for the boys, and sometimes there's a place for that. I think that you need to have a DNA of the club and a familiarity around it. But I don't believe that the best person for the B team manager was ex-players and the assistant to that, and that the pathways coach is a guy that used to play for us, who, if I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, let me know your thoughts, Kev, who seems a little bit over qualified perhaps for the job.
Yes, that is a kind of worry that he is overqualified for the job. I mean, there's only one ex-Celt that I know has been a pathway manager, and that was Gary Caldwell. Gary Caldwell was the pathway manager at Newcastle before he jumped back into management with Exeter. And it's now Jack Ross is actually at Newcastle as a pathway manager.
That's right.
So basically, these guys are there to make sure that you get the loan moves right. You make sure your players keep value and either get value in the first team squad or they get value in loan moves. So if they didn't work like your Tillios and your Palmers and all of that, you still get money back. So that's what your pathway manager is actually doing. You look at the clubs with major turnovers of players like Chelsea have basically got a market where their B team players are gone for 12, 13 million pounds. And they've never kicked a ball for Chelsea and the Man United and Man City boys and that as well. That's how they've got pathway managers, because they're dealing with the guys to make sure they get value for the boys. So that's what Maloney's job is. But as you say, he's not qualified for that job. If Caldwell had got that job over that, now he's qualified for that because he done that for a couple of years at Newcastle, so he knows how this should work. And that's not to say that Maloney doesn't know how it works, but he's not done it at any sort of level whatsoever. Anybody that comes in, whether it's a set piece coach, whether it's a pathway manager, whether it's a sporting director or anything like that, should be the best that money can buy. That we can't get the best player that money can buy, but we can appoint guys in the background that are the best that money can buy to actually put us up a level, And that's what we didn't do.
That's the thing. That's what's curious, and I think that's what gets the fans' backs up when we talk about this. It just seems that everything that we do is incredibly lazy. And I do just go back to the Nicholson thing. Wasn't it just so lucky that we had the best guy in-house already for that job?
Oh, how lucky do we need to be?
And that is the thing. It's just incredibly lucky that we've got.
I think that job was advertised on the canteen wall. That's basically what the job was there.
Internal note of interest, a poster. Yes, I would like this job.
Aye.
Michael. Something like that. No, we laugh about it. We do. We laugh about it, but it comes back to the description that you say. It's almost bowling club-like mentality. We talk about wanting to be world class and everything that we want to do, yet we don't seem to push the boat out and do that through our actions. It's ex-players. Yes, they might have the badges, they might have the coaching requirements to do these jobs, but if you want to be world class, if you want to be class leading and be in there up with the big boys, Celtic should be looking at simple things and saying, you know, let's look at Newcastle, let's look at Brighton, whoever it may well be. Who's their pathways manager? And go and pay them sufficiently, poach them. Who's their analytics guy? Go, poach them. Build a proper squad of independent, not Celtic men, people who are forward thinkers in their roles, even down to the basics. Yes, I've just displayed that we've got vast experience to tap into certain markets through shareholders and stuff that we don't seem to do. But retail, for example, simple things I'm just throwing out there. Go to whoever is the head of Under Armour, for talking's sake. What have you done? We want you in. You're going to be our new marketing guy. Stuff like that, but we don't. It's familiar faces and easy layups.
It's familiar face, and it's also no going forward, right? I was on a training course in my work today, and I was talking to the guy, and the boy was for Sutton Coldfield, and he's a season ticket holder at Mansfield, right? And he's gone on holiday, and he says, "Oh," I said, "This morning I put my ticket on the ticket exchange, and now somebody's using my season ticket for the game on Saturday, and I've got £14 in my bank," and I'm going, "How simple is that?" And that is something that Celtic have refused to do for years and years, create a ticket exchange. Because, and I'm going to say this, because I've had plenty of dealings with it. Well, I did have plenty of dealings with the ticket office in a previous life. They haven't got anybody with the ability to do it.
Aye.
They haven't got anybody with the ability to manage it or implement it.
Brian Rose is going to revolutionise our digital footprint. Let's start with Celtic TV, for example, in this ticket resale platform.
The thing is, I mean, if you want to buy a ticket, you go onto Facebook pages and they've got Celtic resale tickets and stuff, and you end up getting touts on there and people who are ripping folk off and things like that. And people are going on, they don't even have a ticket, and there's poor folk losing their money and stuff, and then they're chasing a ghost on Facebook. It's ridiculous. If the club would come out and do something like this, it would save a hell of a lot of hassle and help out the fan base. It's something so simple that would actually be decent.
I think the problem is it comes down to evolving. And I don't know if it was yourself, Kev, that said it, but certainly on one of our podcasts said an excellent description is that Celtic are an analogue club in a digital age.
It was Tony Haggerty. It says that on Axom years and years ago. I think that was actually during the COVID season. He actually says that. He came on and says that. And it's still true now. It is really still true now.
Still true to the date. And that's the thing we should be looking at.
It's even the wee things like the banners no being up.
Yeah.
Like the pothole no being actually filled in the bus park behind the Celtic end. It's wee simple things like that. You go, these are so simple to actually sort. And
basically,
that pothole's going to end up in a listed pothole if it stays there any longer. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely.
And that's another thing. I don't want to go on. I don't want to keep you too long, but we spoke about the hotel and all that kind of stuff. You look at how massive that is and the opportunity. And I know that you guys at Axom have been championing this for ages. You look at the amount of massive space. Now, you think of that European game the other day, and how many people would be travelling over for that, taking days off, meeting their mates in town for lunch, for beers, where we go, we're going to Merchant City, we're doing this or that, spending hours and hundreds of pounds outside the stadium when they could be on the footprint in and around there, spending their money. See, if you're going to pull the pants down of the fans and you're going to fleece us for every single bit of our cash, do it right. Don't do it half-heartedly. That's what I would say on that. You know, you look at Wrexham, for example. I know small club, right? Big money backing, but you look at, is it the racecourse or the racetrack? Very small, very small. They pack it out. It costs too much to expand it. What have they done? On match days, there's marquees and it's like a tent. It's like a market all the way around it on match days, and they cane it. Food, beverages, entertainment, you know, merch. And that's how they make their money, because they can't do it through the gate. Sponsors, so on and so forth. See
everything you're mentioning there, and everything we've mentioned, and like the footprint, daying up the main stand, the banners and all of that. I'll guarantee you, I have got an interest in American sports, and I'm very, very interested in the Americanization of football in Europe, and you can actually see it a lot in the English Premier League. You read things about like Bournemouth and how they've like done stuff round about the stadium, and it's really, really interesting, eh? The American owners of Rangers, they'll be looking at that first before they look at the playing side. They'll be going, how can we get more cash out of a constant flow of folk here?
Aye.
And they'll have a look at doing stuff like that. They'll have a look at if they can expand the stadiums. They'll have a look to try and get folk people on the ground, and we'll follow them because we should be forward thinking that way. And for you, and as you've quite rightly put down there, Steve, we have got guys on that board that can do that. It should be doing that. It should be pushing that through. And why are they not?
And it's basics to touch on, as you say, it's just the stands, the banners, so on and so forth. I know that it would cost millions upon millions, probably a lot more than we'd ever imagine to extend that stand, right? So that I can understand why they might not want to do that. But simple things like the concourses, building it out, you look at what would happen with some grounds where they realise that they can't, so they put a facade in the wrap around the stadium and they extend the concourse space. They make that more. This fallacy that the main stand is a listed building is absolute garbage, because the old school next to it was a listed building. There isn't really such thing as a listed building. There will be something, an aspect to that building that's listed. It could be something ornate. It could be a staircase. It could be an etching on a wall. It could be something as simple as that, a lintel. That's what becomes listed. And you can get permissions to essentially remove that and repatriate it somewhere and save it. Why do you think they were able to knock down the listed school building and make it a car park? So it's full nonsense. And the stand as well is essentially, as you say, falling apart. Paul John Dyke says it. He walks around and you see those things and you see the decay on the stadium. And we sit and we laugh at Rangers falling down on stuff and that, but ours is unfortunately quite as bad as it is. For example, the lesser mentioned support struts that get put in on that old stand on non-match days that bolt into the ground and hold it up, and it's been lightweight. It's been made lighter on the way to the roof. Why? Because it's eventually becoming weaker. That's the reality of it. There's a lot of work to be done, and Celtic need to either ship up or shape out and move on, because we need drastic change, and it does start, as Kev says, with the footballing department, but we also need people who are willing to, as they say, speculate to accumulate more.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's
I
fair.
agree. Yeah.
Well, anyway, guys, listen, thank you for joining me. I apologise sincerely to you guys and to everyone for the faux pas and the moving out and the drop.
You're on the Celtic Wi-Fi, Steve-O. That's what it is, mate.
I'm and I thank you guys for doing it. But I'm going to say this, Kev. I think you're the common denominator with this, because the last time I watched you, Paul John Dykes dropped out, did he not? It's Wi-Fi. Are you the Wi-Fi cursor?
No, hopefully no. But now you've actually got me thinking. Maybe it's the metal plate in my head. I don't know. No, Paul John's Wi-Fi is in Fife, so that's his complete.
That says it all, yeah. That says it all.
That says it. That says it's all. It just I do get kind of paranoid when I start mentioning the board and having a go at them and the Wi-Fi goes. As if it's almost we're getting cyber attacked somewhere. It's not the Russians. It's Brian Wilson's like sitting in his wee darkened bunker, like cyber attacking us.
So just take one final thought from you guys, both of you, don't mind. We mentioned, and a lot of people have thrown this, we spoke at the board, we spoke about the need to modernise, what we do, what we don't do. A lot of people have thrown it back and says, the reason we're not spending money has to fall also at the door of the manager. I come back to it. Adamida hooked at 45 minutes. Arna Engels doesn't go into 70 minutes. Trusty doesn't go into 70 minutes. Bernardo's sitting there as well. That's the bones of nearly £30 million. Yeah. All, if you believe it, penned by the hand of Brendan Rodgers. You then look at his previous stint and ask yourself how many real hits were there in the grand scale of things under the Rodgers regime. Devil's advocate time, Kev. Do the board, we know they can spend more money, but do the board simply not trust Brendan Rodgers with the money?
That's not their decision to make. If he's the manager of your football club, then you give him the budget to do as he wishes, and if you fail, then you sack him. And that's a tale as old as time in football. That's what actually happens. You should not get involved. But what I would say is, Ida Oyers wanted to sign him after that 6 months, right? Yeah. Bernardo was there for a year, and when we got him for the price we got him from, everyone of us went, that's actually quite a decent deal.
Yeah.
And Engels, I'm going to go that he's just in the wrong movie. I think we actually signed a guy there who doesn't fit into the way that we actually play. And I'm seeing the same with Negrin quite early doors already.
Yeah.
But I will go back to Brendan's first spell when I spoke to the guys with my friends who do the Anfield Rap, the Liverpool podcast, and they told us Brendan couldn't pick a player.
Right.
They says that his downfall at Liverpool was when he was going to the transfer committee with players, and they were going, "All right, you can get that one, we get that one." And Ben Tech is the one that they keep on going back to. So I don't think the board should be doing that, but the way that they run it wouldn't surprise me if they are.
And on that final thought, then, Paddy, about trusting the manager, I listened to my sins for a wee bit of the Clyde Super Scoreboard, and a guy came on, he made a point, and then it got argued back to him with the panel, if you want to call them that, saying that perhaps they are just in opposite directions. And this comes back to what Kev says, and we've been discussing, there's a disconnect between the football department, as a football department, and the powers that be, where he wants to show up in this market and they want to show up in that market. And there needs to be a middle ground somewhere in there. Now, we know that fees don't guarantee quality and doesn't mean that they're going to be the best fit. But is that why we need someone to form strategy, a director of football, that can say to someone from a standpoint of knowledge, I understand you want this guy, Brendan, he's 12, 11 million pounds, whatever. However, we want you to go for this guy who's maybe 7 million pounds or whatever. And that's based on being knowledgeable about markets rather than, well, you want a guy that's 11 million pound. We'd rather you went for this guy at 3 million pound based on metrics with no football knowledge.
If you've got something to back it up, I mean, I'm on the kind of same boat as what Kev is there, and saying that you've got to back the manager. You bring him in to do a job, and when we got Brendan Rodgers in there, like, there was a few people disappointed, obviously, when he come back the way he did and whatever, but he's proved his worth, and he's an outstanding manager. He might not be able to pick a player. Certainly, if he picked Arne Engels, then I'll back every single person up that calls him out on it, because I totally agree. I think that he's not a fit for Celtic, but I think you need somebody in there who's going to, force a hand a wee bit. Steve will help him out. Maybe not go in and undercut him. Somebody that's just going to advise him, basically. But I think what would help him as well is knowing how much money he's got, because Brendan spoke about improving the squad so many times, talked about bringing players in. He's highlighted the positions every single interview, and he continues to get asked, and he's starting to cut a frustrated figure because he's been asked the same questions over and over and over again, and he's having to give the same answers. He's having to sit there and go, we know where we need to strengthen. We know where we need to strengthen. And rather than throw the board under the bus, which I think he's pretty much already done, I don't know what else a manager can do on that. Has he highlighted players that are out of depth? Possibly. But I don't really know where the board are dragging their feet here. You're going to Jacob Breham one as well. Again, going in $1.5 million for a player that's valued at $5 million. That's not the way business should be done. And I don't think the board should have as much say as what they do. I think the manager should be able to go in there and say, listen, this guy's going to improve my squad. Please, can I have him? Do you know what I mean? You shouldn't have to go in and ask, please. Just say, listen, give me this guy. This guy's going to make my squad better. But you can see the standpoint from the board saying you brought in Ida, you brought in Engels, you brought in Trusty. You didn't play them in your biggest game. Well, you played one of them and hooked them after 45 minutes. But I get that, I understand it. But we need to back the manager. We need to get behind the manager. We need to get behind the team. And if there is going to be protest, I will say to the Celtic fans, please do it after the game. Please get behind the fans, get behind the players on the park, get behind the manager, show them your support, and then stay behind after a game or whatever. Do it outside and protest about the board or whatever else, because we need to get behind the team, especially at this moment in time.
Yeah. Kev, I'll give you the final word as our guest. I echo very much a lot of what Paddy said there. As it's been said, sack the board. It doesn't quite work like that. We've looked at it. We're in a second dynasty. We've spoke about what we need to improve, what we should be doing. The big question, Typhoon's thrown it out, just a yes or no. Is the board fit for the purpose as it stands? And how do you see this panning out? Have you any concerns that this will eat into match days and ultimately eat into the players on the pitch and cause problems? How quickly can this fire get put out, and how do we do it?
I think the horse is already bolted for this season. Even if we do get into the Champions League next week and we do sign a couple of players, I mean, my phone's gone that the guy for Belgium's almost done, and we've went back to Go Ahead Eagles. Again, these are these are boys that we were linked with earlier on in the window, and it just makes you go, well, why did you not just do this earlier on in the window? So I think the horse is actually bolted with for a lot of fans, but what I would actually say is, if we start winning, if we beat Rangers at Ibrox and we get a couple of players, and I'm sorry to say, but the majority of fans will be quite happy with that, and the board know that. And it's the way it's been. Again, I've been in a room when I was told that Rangers being good is great for business and competition is good for business, and as long as we finish a point ahead of them, we will still sell 50,000 season tickets. And that has been proved correct.
Undoubtedly.
There's talk in there as well about the increasing of the stand and increasing of the stadium to 77,000 or upwards of 88,000 even. And is it justified? I think if you do that, you'll still sell it out every single week. I think you probably still, at that point, you'd then sell 65,000 season tickets, and that's where a boycott no longer works.
Yes, and I think, again, just to not go down that rabbit hole, I think the reason that isn't going to happen is quite simply cost. The offset of the cost at the front end versus how long it takes you to rake that back. That's probably just why it doesn't happen. It doesn't make economical sense at this moment in time, whereas a hotel and everything else probably would. Well, anyway, guys, listen, thank you very much for joining me. Thanks to everybody for taking the time to stick with us through the thick and thin. Thanks to yourself, Kev, for coming on and lending your voice.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
It would have been ideal if it was plain sailing all the way through, but when you do these live shows, it never quite works out that way. So anyway, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. If you haven't done it, hit the subscribe, get us over to 2,000. You could be one of the 9 that help us do that tonight, and we really, really appreciate it. We'll be back through the week for more chat. Hopefully this evens itself out. We've got a game at the weekend to take care of. We've got a second leg to take care of, because we want to take care of it for more than one thing. So we'll get some money in the bank, and guess what? It might just get some players and all. Anyway, until the next time, take care of yourself. And as always, Paddy, you tell them, mate.
Hail, guys.
See you later. Thank you.
Cheers.